यशोदाभियोलुकलाधवमानम् परामृष्टम् अत्यन्ततो द्रुतगोप्या रुदन्तमुहुर्नेत्रयुग्मं मृजन्ताम् कराम्भुजयुग्मेन शातङ्कनेत्रा मुहुश्वासकम्पात्रिरेखाङ्ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिबद्धा तुम्हारे स्टाइल में बजाओ करता है तुम्हारे स्टाइल में बजाओ करता है इति दृक्स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्तः तदीयेषितग्नेषु भक्तर्जितात्वा पुनः प्रेमतस्तं शतावृत्ति वन्दे तदीयेषितग्नेषु भक्तर्जितात्वा पुनः प्रेमतस्तं परं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षावधिं वा न चान्यमृणेऽहं वरेशादपीह न मोक्षावधिं वा न चान्यमृणेऽहं वरेशादपीह इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबाला सदा मे मनस्य विरास्तां किमन्ये इदं ते मुखाम्बोजम् अत्यन्तनील वृतं कुन्तलै स्निग्धरक्तश गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य विरास्ताम् अलं लक्षलाभै नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णो प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजालब्धिमग्ना कृपा दृष्टिवृष्ट्यातिदीनं बतानो गृहानिशमामज्ञं ये दक्षिदृश्ये कुबेरात्मजौ बद्धमूर्त्याैव यद्वत् त्वया मोचितौ भक्तिभाजौ कृतौ च स्वयमुचितौ भक्ति भजौ कृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकामे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्तेस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयोदरायाथ विश्वस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकायाय त्वदीयप्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायाय त्वदीयप्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Use the other side. Use the other side. Use the other side. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jai Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada The Supreme Controller, who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifests himself in Gokul, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their storeroom, and then who quickly jumped up and ran in retreat in fear of Mother Yasoda, but was ultimately caught, to that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances.
Krishna's babyhood drowned the inhabitants of Gokul in pools of ecstasy. The devotees were attracted only to his majestic aspects of Narayan and Vaikuntha. The Lord here reveals, I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. The Supreme Lord Damodar, my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times.
O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation, nor eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon. My only prayer is that your childhood pastimes may constantly appear in my mind. O Lord, I do not even want to know your features, Paramatma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart.
O Lord, the cheeks of your blackish lotus face, which is encircled by locks of curling hair, have become reddened like bimba fruit due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are of no use to me, but may this vision constantly remain in my mind.
O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, please be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow and am almost like a dead man. Please shower the rain of mercy on me, uplift me, and protect me with your nectarian vision.
O Lord Damodar, in your form as a baby, Mother Yasoda bound you to a grinding stone with rope for tying cows. You then freed the sons of Kuvera, Manigriva, and Nalak Kuvara, who were cursed to stand as trees, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into your effulgence.
O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound with a rope by Mother Yasoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my humble obeisances to your most beloved Radharani and to your
Shri Sri Radha Damodar ki jai. Shri Sri Kishore Kishore ki jai. So His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj is back to Chicago after his travels to different parts of the globe. And he's traveling with our dear friend Janakinath Prabhu. We're happy to see him change color. That's very nice. So let's all welcome Maharaj and Janakinath Prabhu happily. Harivol! Harivol! So this morning's class will be given by Maharaj, of course. Mridanga, we have one. Somebody. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Gopi Jai Gopi Janavallabha Giri Varadhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Yasodhanandana Raja Janhanjayasam Yasodhanandana Raja Janhanjayasam Jamuna Tira Havana Jamuna Jamuna Tira Havana Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunja Biharira Jaya Radham Madhava Kunja Biharira Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadharira Gopi Giri Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadharira Yasodhanandana Raja Janhanjana Yasodhanandana Raja Janhanjana Jamuna Tira Ghanchari Jamuna Tira Havana Radha Madhava Kunja Biharira Vibho Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Biharira Kunjabi Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Divam Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Yo Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Rivo Hare Rama Gauranga Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Nitai Gaur Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna. All glories to the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Nitai Gaur Hare Gauranga Nitai Gaur Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Nitai Gaur Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Hare Bhav Nitai Gaur Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, hey Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahans Paribhacharya Astottara Satar Sri Sriman. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Raj Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Sri Sri Kishore Kishori Ki Jai. Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Sri Sri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Sri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sri Sri Damodar Vrata Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What chapter is it? Chapter 30, okay. 430, 29? 49. 430, 49. 430. Oh, okay. Chakshushe tvantara prapte te yasa sarja praja ista sagdakso daiva choditaha chakshuse tvantara prapte praksarge kala vidrute yasa sarja praja ista Sadakso Daiva Choditaha. Ladies? Mm-hmm. Chakshuse. Name Chakshusha. 2. But Antare, the Manvantara. Prapte, when it happened. Prak, previous. Sarge, creation. Kala Vidrute, destroyed in due course of time. Ya, one who. Sasarja, created. Praja, living entities. Ista, desirable. Sa, he. Daksha, Daiva, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Choditaha, inspired. The chapter is entitled The Activities of the Prachetas. Translation: his previous body was destroyed, but he, the same Daksha, inspired by the Supreme Will, created all the desired living entities in the Chakshusha Manvantara. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.17, Sarasya Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Vidu Ratim Yuga Sahasrantam Tehorata Vido Janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of one of Brahma's day. As such, also is the duration of his night. Brahma's one day consists of 1,000 yuga cycles of the 4 yugas. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. In that one day there are 14 Manvantars, and out of these Manvantars, this Chakshusha Manvantara is the 6th. The various Manus existing in one day of Lord Brahma are as follows: Swayambhuva, Sarochisa, Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata, Chakshusha, Vaivishvata, Sarvani, Daksha Sarvani, Brahma Sarvani, Savarni, Brahma Savarni, Dharma Savarni, Rudra Savarni, Deva Savarni, and Indra Savarni. Thus there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. In a year there are 5,040 Manus. Brahman has to live for 100 years. Consequently, the total of Manus appearing and disappearing during the life of Brahma is 504,000. This is the calculation for one universe, and there are innumerable universes. All these manus come and go simply by the breathing process of Mahavishnu, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Yasyaiko nisvasita kambalam kada nasyaiko nisvasita kalam atavalam yam jivanti voma vijra jaganandanata Vishnur mahasaya yasya kala vishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The word Jagananatha means Lord Brahma. There are innumerable Jagananatha Brahmas, and thus we can calculate the many Manus. The present age is under the control of Vaivashvata Manu. Each Manu lives 4,320,000 years multiplied by 71. The present Manu has already lived for 4,320,000 years multiplied by 28. All these lifelong expanse are ultimately ended by the laws of material nature. The controversy of the Daksha Yajna took place in the Swayambhuva Manvantar period. As a result, Daksha was punished by Lord Shiva, but by the virtue of his prayers to Lord Shiva, he became eligible to regain his former opulence. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Daksha underwent severe penances up to the 5th Manvantara. Thus, at the beginning of the 6th Manvantara, known as Chakshusha Manvantara, Daksha regained his former opulence by the blessings of Lord Shiva. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gena Jena Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staptitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swam Padantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, seems quite fantastic, doesn't it? All these big numbers. What is the scientific understanding of creation or the universe? Very small, isn't it? They just speculate this way and that way. Here it gives Bhagavatam really gives a general description in a very succinct way to give an understanding. Why do we have to hear about all these? I mean, what does that have to do with us? The Deva Sarvani, Indra Sarvani, this and this many. What's so important about that? How's that going to get you back to Godhead? Why is it so important? Because unless you know a little bit about how great Krishna is, you can't really surrender to Krishna. Prabhupada used to say Krishna is great, but if you say Krishna is great, that doesn't really tell you anything. We use the word great in a very ordinary way from day to day, talking about things of this world, great people, great events, great tragedies. The word great is used quite loosely and what we say even incorrectly. When we say God is great, that doesn't really tell you much. But here you get a little understanding of the greatness. But Bhagavatam explains just the nature of this universe. How fantastic it is. We can't even begin to understand what this one tiny universe, which is really the smallest of all the universes, and there are, as it's explained in the Bhagavatam, there are millions and billions, the word is koti, unlimited universes. And that's just the material world, which is only 1/4 of existence. The other 3/4 are the spiritual world. What's our understanding of the spiritual world? So God is great, yeah, but you have to really hear a little bit about how great He is. There's a beautiful pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam wherein Lord Brahma, he wanted to come and visit Lord Krishna in Dwarka. So he came to one of Krishna's palaces, and he knocked on the door, and Krishna's servant came out and said, yes. He said, Lord Brahma's here to see Lord Krishna. Okay, just a minute. Went inside, spoke with Krishna. He came back out, he said, Krishna wants to know which Brahma are you? And he was bewildered. He was thinking, Brahma, that's me. I'm Brahma. What do you mean, which Brahma? And then he became a little bit sober, and he said, the four-headed Brahma. And so he went back, and the servant went back and said, Krishna, the four-headed Brahma is here. So Krishna came out and greeted Brahma. Brahma paid his obeisances very nicely to Krishna. And then he was thinking, I got to ask Krishna why he was asking which Brahma. And then he said, my dear Lord, I don't want to sound a little bit ignorant, but, when you say which Brahma, well, I'm Brahma. And Krishna didn't say a word. He remained silent, and that by his, when we say inconceivable potency, he called all the other Brahmas from all the other universes. And there were Brahmas with 10 heads, Brahmas with 100 heads, Brahmas with 1,000 heads, Brahmas with 10,000 heads, Brahmas with 100,000 heads, Brahmas with 1,000,000 heads, and a Brahmas with 10 million heads. Because according to the size of the universe, Brahma has that many heads. So this is the smallest universe, so he only needs 4 heads. We get 1 head. And we still can't even figure out what's going on in the room, what to speak about, the house. But Brahma's got 4 heads. And this is a small universe, really small. So what does that actually say? That actually Krishna is so great, we can't even begin to understand his greatness. He appears in so many ways in a very merciful way. But actually, that's why when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, unless you understand how great Krishna is, you can't understand that Krishna is a beautiful cowherd boy in Vrindavan, plays on the flute, has 16,108 girlfriends minimum. That's minimum, not maximum. And he has friends, and he plays like an ordinary boy. It sounds like some kind of fairy tale, right? Yeah, religion just wants to get you excited. So they give you all these mythological stories just to get you all psyched up. But really, it's just to enchant your mind. It's not like that. So you might think, well, yeah, people also have that understanding. But, there's a lot of hyperboles, analogies, exaggerations. But actually, until you understand that Krishna is the source of everything in existence, it's impossible to understand Krishna in Vrindavan. That's why Bhagavatam goes systematically through the 10 cantos. And Prabhupada said, by systematically approaching the cantos in that way, one gradually starts understanding the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the basis of devotion, or what we say, the enhancement for devotion, is knowledge. We need to have knowledge about Krishna. If you don't know anything about Krishna, you really can't develop your love for Krishna, which is ultimately the principle of bhakti, to develop love for Krishna. So knowledge of Krishna is foundational to love of Krishna, because knowledge of Krishna brings the Krishna into the perspective that Krishna ultimately is everything. From all angles of vision, there is only Krishna. That's all. But then there's that beautiful cowherd boy in Sri Vrindavan Dham who appears to be like an ordinary person, but actually is the source of everything in existence. Lord Brahma, he wanted to test Krishna. He saw Krishna kill this huge demon in Vrindavan called Aghasura. And he was amazed, this little boy, cowherd boy. Who is he? He's killing this big demon. His demon was huge. He was 8 miles long, and his mouth was 1 mile high when he opened it up. Yeah, I know, another story. It sounds really fantastic. But I can give you what we say logical proof that there is something that we can understand that's beyond the ordinary that exists even within the ordinary. Does that make sense? Just like, have you ever been to a circus? Yeah, circus. You go to the circus. They got what they call freak shows. And sometimes there's a chicken with 2 heads, right? Or a guy has, like 4 arms or something. There are people who have, when we say bodily forms, that are not like the normal people, right? I know one devotee, he has 6 toes on 1 foot. He's got 11 toes altogether. You might say it's good because he's a guru and he can give him more shelter. Sometimes there's limited room there, so expanding the mercy. So when you see such things that are like a little bit beyond normal, you can use that as a principle to understand that even beyond our senses are limited. Not only limited, but faulty. When you see something, you actually see within a limited perspective, or you hear within a limited perspective, you experience within a limited perspective. Not only this perspective is limited, and it's also your perspective, which may be totally wrong. Just like sometimes they have these pictures, right? And you look at the picture and they say, what do you see? And you see an old lady, right? But then if you look closely, there's a young lady in the picture with the old lady. But someone may have to point it out to you, because our perception of what we say the external environment is conditioned by our consciousness. And therefore, what do we know about transcendence? Nothing. Zero. We have to hear from authority. That's the only proof that this knowledge is foundational, that you hear from the perfect authority. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the pure devotee spiritual master, gives the understanding of truth by realization and not simply by some imagination. So when people say, they speculate about what things are, well, we say, okay, if you don't know, if you don't believe what we say here, then you tell us what it is. And they can't do it. Just like we say, Krishna's a cowherd boy. And they say, no, he's not. And we say, well, give us your description of Krishna. And they'll say, well, or God. Well, he's great. Sits on a cloud, throws thunderbolts like that. Some imagination, right? Or he's lifting this big, he's like really got a lot of muscles. He's got to carry the world on his back, You see that picture of Atlas. And he gets tired after a while. He's kind of hunched over. He created this world and he can't even hold it up, right? So all these, what we say imaginary ideas of what God is like is all what it is. It's imaginary. Even the scientists or even many religionists from other traditions can't give a correct or complete understanding of God. But Bhagavatam has it. And here, what are we hearing about here? We're hearing not about God, we're hearing about God's creation. How fantastic it is. 4,320,000 years multiplied by 71 is a life of a Manu. And there's 14 Manus in a day of Brahma. And there's 504,000 Manus in a lifetime of Brahma. Brahma lives, 311,040,000,000,000 years. Wow. Some of us, somebody told you, would you like to live that long? You'd say, no, man. Especially not in Chicago. Maybe somewhere else. It's too cold, too many winters. So the descriptions of the Srimad Bhagavatam are meant to help us appreciate the glories of God. And by appreciating the glories of God, then we can understand how small we are. Because the problem with the living entity is the living entity, in its limited perspective of existence, thinks himself to be important. That's the problem. We take our existence as being so very important. It's important to us, of course, but people center their whole existence around what happens to them. And therefore they live in what is called a little world of their own existence. And that's called Maya, to put it in a very small way. It's Maya. It's Maya because Maya gives you your own little conception of reality, and it's different from someone else's conception, but it's also similar in some ways. And in that Maya, we think that we're the center. But you can see here, just by the description, how small we are. And this is just a small part of the actual descriptions. As it goes on to describe, just like when Lord Brahma, after he saw Krishna killed Aghasura, he was thinking, I'm going to test this little cowherd boy and see who he actually is. And Krishna, right after that, he went to play with his friends on the bank of the Jamuna, and they had lunch. And they were sitting there, and they were eating lunch, and they were looking at each other's lunch basket, and they were playing games. And Krishna likes to do that. He loves to play with his friends. And here's this big, when we say demigod, he's coming along to see what he can do. So the cow, somehow or other, just by the arrangement of the Lord, somehow drifted away from the group. And Krishna said, my dear friends, please keep eating your lunch. I'll go find the cows. So he left. In the meantime, Brahma comes back and he steals the calves and the cowherd boys. And he puts them in some mystic slumber. When Krishna comes back, he immediately realizes Brahma's little program. So what does he do? He expands himself into each and every cowherd boy and calf exactly like that boy and calf, all the way down to their speech and their mannerisms. There was like nothing different from each of the boy when Krishna expanded into that. And everything was the same. And that lasted for a whole year. And it's a beautiful pastime. Finally, after 1 year, which was one moment of Brahma came back to see the scene and see what was the results. And when he looked around, he saw the same thing. And he was thinking, what happened? I stole these calves and cowherd boys. And then he ran back to the cave where he put them in the mystic slumber, and they were still there. And he came back to the Jamuna, and they were there also. So he didn't know what to think. He went back and forth thinking, is Krishna kind of like when I go this way, he takes them and puts them over here, and then when I go over this way, he puts them over here? So he was bewildered. Now to bewilder Brahma is not easy. His body is made out of pure intelligence. And he's got 4 heads, so it's a little extra intelligence there. A lot extra, you might say. But he couldn't keep up with Krishna's, what we say, just a tiny little bit of Krishna's mystic power. Brahma was completely bewildered. And what Krishna did is he expanded himself into another form. He expanded into 3. There was 3 sets of cowherd boys. And Brahma was later on revealed, Brahma never stole the cowherd boys and calves because it's explained that material cannot touch spiritual. Especially pure spiritual energy cannot be touched by material. So what Brahma stole was simply some creation of the same forms that were created by Krishna to make Brahma think that he stole it. All this is going on by Krishna's energy. And in the meantime, Krishna is still playing with his friends, eating lunch. And finally, Brahma realized, I think I made a mistake. I think I did the wrong thing trying to play a little trick on Krishna. And then he came out with his four heads and he just paid his obeisances to the Lord. And he offered prayers. And Krishna's just standing there waiting for Brahma to end the prayer so he can go back and play with his friends again. He wasn't really so interested in Brahma's prayers. But Brahma was completely humiliated. It says that if you try to show how great you are in front of somebody else who's great, you become a fool. Sometimes we want to think, I want them to know that I'm really a pretty nice devotee. But you just show yourself as a fool. Sometimes we do that to prove to somebody else that I'm actually not so bad. I've actually got a lot of good qualities. And that's called pretense or false ego. When we remain humble, then we get the mercy. Humility means not to put oneself forward in any particular way in order to get some recognition or some distinction. So Brahma tried that, and he became bewildered. Later on, he offers these beautiful prayers to Krishna. He just glorifies Krishna for Krishna's amazing energies. And then basically, in one point, he just explains that, I'm just so insignificant. And I'm so proud of my position as Brahma. So please, Lord, give me a chance to get rid of my false pride. Because false pride destroys one's ability to engage in devotional service. One can be proud of anything. Even if you have nothing, you'll find something to be proud of. Right? I don't know what would be a good example. But they use that old cliche, a pauper is proud of his penny, right? People have to be proud about something. Even if you have nothing and your dog likes you. My dog likes me, I'm proud of that. So people are proud of so many things. But pride is the ultimate, what we say, obstacle in the path of devotional service. That's why Bhagavatam explains, when we hear how great Krishna is, we have to understand the opposite, how small we are. And that smallness is an asset for success. Because when you think you're great, you can't get the mercy. When you realize you're small and you have no other hope but the mercy of Krishna, then you can call out, Krishna, save me. Krishna, I can't do anything. Krishna, give me your mercy. Then, there's many people who are practicing religion, but they can't really humbly pray to the Lord for the mercy. We have to come to that stage of actually begging the Lord for mercy. And what is that begging? It's not begging about getting a better material situation or solving our material problems. It's begging for devotional service. Because by engaging in devotional service, everything that we're looking for in life is found within that context of Krishna, the relationship with Krishna. Because Krishna is everything. In the Chatur Sloki, there's 4 verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 9th chapter, 2nd canto, where it says, Krishna speaking. He speaks these verses. Before the creation, he says, I existed. During the manifestation, I exist. And after the annihilation, I remain. He says, only I exist. Only I. So who are we? If everything ultimately is Krishna, we're part and parcel of Krishna. That's all. Our material bodies are simply products of the material energy due to our association with material energy. We have to maintain the bodies, but the body is not you. That's the most important thing to understand. We are not this body. And that's the foundation for making success in Krishna consciousness. So what happens to the body doesn't happen to you. What happens to the soul is ultimately the individual. So in devotional service, we have to, being surrounded by the material energy, because Prabhupada says, Krishna's here and Maya's here. And you go a little bit this way, you're in Maya. To keep yourself focused on Krishna is what we say a cultivation of a kind of a consciousness that is based on the mood of devotional service, the mood of service, to serve. That's what it means to be Krishna conscious, to serve. And when we realize how great Krishna is, we want to serve him. There's that story of one man. He wanted to serve the greatest person. So he heard that the mayor was the greatest person. He went to the mayor. The mayor said, no, the governor's the greater person. You go to him. The governor said, no, the president's the actual greater person. And then he found that the president was worshiping this sage. So he went to the sage. And then the sage would go out to the forest and worship God. Ultimately, he was led to the ultimate greatest of all persons, which was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the point is that Krishna is so great, we cannot serve. We cannot not serve him. But how to serve him? That's the point. And we want that devotional service. So devotional service is the success in life. We have to maintain these bodies. Why? For devotional service. That's all. There's no happiness in this material world. Prabhupada was talking about this subject, about there's no happiness in the material world. He was discussing it with his disciples. And one disciple said, but Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that in the mode of goodness there is happiness. Prabhupada said, yes, but in the mode of goodness there's also knowledge. And what is that knowledge? There's no happiness here. So what is the basis of this principle? The principle is that when we finally come to the conclusion that there's no happiness in this material world, then I can stop trying to become happy, and then you can become Krishna conscious. That's the point. When we get to that point, then it says you're on the spiritual path. We're trying to get onto the spiritual path, but as long as we still deviate our mind towards trying to fulfill material desires, it's like trying to build a fire and pour water on it at the same time. The fire's not going to go so much. So what do we need to do? Take shelter of devotional service, especially the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. I think Prabhupada mentioned something here. There was something here in relationship to the process. Oh, austerities, penances. What's the austerities in this age? Yagya sankirtana praya yajanti hi sumerasaha. That in every age, and even throughout the scriptures, in each age, there are so many recommended austerities. There's yagyas, there's penances, there's fastings, there's vratas, but ultimately, and there are different kinds of penances and austerities depending on the situation and the goal. But in this age, nobody can perform all these things, and it's not necessary. That's why if you read Prabhupada's purports, he ultimately says the only austerity in this age is Sankirtan, or chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is the foundation for all development of what we say our relationship with Krishna. So this is the real austerity, to chant Hare Krishna, but every day, 16 rounds without fail, as the most important part of our devotional life. And then it becomes easy to do what I was talking about earlier, to surrender in devotional service. Because by getting the taste or getting the connection with Krishna in devotional service through chanting, then everything becomes easy, becomes natural. The holy name makes everything. It makes all the arrangements for your devotional service. Put the holy name first. And we have to practice how to chant the holy names, free from offenses, with a desire to meet Krishna in the holy names. This is the essence of Krishna consciousness. Some of us like to do active service, and active service is important. But the foundation for the practice of active service is just like when you build a house. If you put the windows and the doors and the chandeliers and the walls on, if the foundation's not strong, it's not going to stay. The foundation in our spiritual life is hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Satam prasangam mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkarna rasayanakata. This is what makes devotional service so wonderful. Prasadam, I know, is wonderful too. But that it becomes even more wonderful when we're hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, especially this month. This month is a month where we can focus on that. This is the month of Kartik, the month of Damodar, Radharani's month, very merciful month. This pastime is so sweet, this Damodar pastime. And this is just one of many Krishna's pastimes. When we read these prayers, just like after we chant the prayers and we're reading, go deeper. What is those prayers actually saying? What are they actually saying? They're bringing us into the Leela of Damodar. And that's what Krishna consciousness is about, to leave this material existence and put our consciousness in Krishna. In Krishna's pastimes, in Krishna's names, in Krishna's forms, in Krishna's devotional service. We become Krishna intoxicated. It's all about Krishna. Because ultimately, there is nothing. And even if you solve your material problems or your material situations, you get another problem, right? You can't win in this material world. So when they say stop trying to solve your material problems and start engaging in devotional service, and you'll see that your material problems are no longer problems anymore. Because the reason why we have material problems is because we're not in Krishna consciousness. There'll be material challenges, that's another thing. But these challenges can be met ordinarily. The basic principle is to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. And Brahma, after he realized what I did, he wanted to come back and take part in Krishna's Leela as a humble devotee. He didn't want to be Lord Brahma anymore. Of course, he had to be, because that was his service. Couldn't give up his service. But he was thinking, I just want to be part of Krishna's Leela in a very humble and very unpretentious way. So he went to Navadvip. First he went back to his post as Brahma, and later on he came to Navadvip and started performing some tremendous austerities and offering prayers. My dear Lord, bring me into your Leela again, but in a very different way, a way that I can be a servant. And he came as Srila Haridas Thakur. That same Lord Brahma came back as Haridas Thakur. He was born in a Muslim family. He was an outcast by Hindu society. He was ostracized. He was beaten and tortured by the Islamic rulers at the time. But he was happy because he was always chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So he didn't care that he wasn't in his post as Lord Brahma. It didn't mean anything to him. Brahma has a lot of power, a lot of influence. But he was happy just chanting Hare Krishna and preaching. So this is devotion. It really says something, because this material energy is simply meant to divert our attention away from Krishna. And therefore, it's a struggle to keep our minds and hearts on the process of devotional service. We may be doing a lot of active service, and that's nice. But please take sufficient time to hear and chant the glories of the Lord, no matter how busy you are. Because if we don't do that, after some time we will fall away from devotional service. The taste comes by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. That was something I was going to say. Yeah, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He makes this statement. Some people say that I have too much service to do, and I have no time to hear and chant. He says this is karma buddhi. Karma buddhi means I'm simply doing things to get the results. In other words, I'm more attached to the results of my activities. And being attached to the results of my activities is a feature of the material energy. Because people do things, why? To get a result. We serve for the pleasure of Krishna. We're not looking for results. The results belong to Krishna anyway. And according to Bhagavad Gita, as explained, you can't bring about the results by your activities. The results come by the grace of the Lord, or through the material energy, depending on whether you're connected with the material activities or the spiritual activities. But the point is that he goes on to say that those who say this, he uses a very strong statement. You ready? You sure? He said, anyone who says, I have no time to hear and chant the glories of the Lord, he said it's like a bad smell coming out of the body. That's his statement. And he says, he ends the same, they never get the mercy of the spiritual master. So this is where Krishna consciousness is, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord as much as we can. And of course we have our service to do, but we can always find time to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Okay, any questions? Yes. Achyuta Ashraya. Ashraya. Ashraya.
Achyut Ashraya, he said.
Huh?
He said Achyut Ashraya.
Achyuta Ashraya? That's right.
I'm sorry for that. Thank you, Maharaj. It's so nice to have you back. Thank you for the class. There's a reference that Srila Prabhupada, there's a reference here to Srila Prabhupada's statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita that one must read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and with scrutiny to gradually become attached to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is what you were saying. Would you elaborate a little for us on what it means with scrutiny?
With scrutiny, that part? Yeah, try to understand what's being said. Look at it, read it, and then say, what is Prabhupada saying? Let me try to understand. Srila Prabhupada also said that you can take a verse and you can explain it from different angles of vision, and each of the angles are correct. So this philosophy can be seen correctly from different ways, depending on the perspective you're looking at it. So when Prabhupada, that's why if you really read Prabhupada's books, they're full of contradictions. Unlimited contradictions. But you have to understand that he's speaking according to a certain idea that he wants to get across at that particular point. And so scrutinizingly means to try to understand deeper what's being said in this particular context. And it's important because spiritual knowledge is realization. When you understand something, you get a realization. And that realization helps you to become detached from material desires. Transcendental knowledge is also a feature of devotional service. Transcendental knowledge, not theoretical knowledge. So we have to understand. Bodhyantas parasparam kutyantas chimam dityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So this is the activities of the devotees to hear and chant the glories of the Lord and to discuss these things amongst ourselves. What is Krishna saying? What is the Bhagavatam saying? And you can do that all day. In terms of the information that's available, there's no limit. But you want to understand deeper. What's the use of reading if we simply don't really understand what we're reading? So ask questions. Another part of scrutiny means write down your questions. And then when you get the opportunity, you can ask the question. And it becomes a clarification. We're trying to get our minds away from the mundane and into the transcendental. And this is the way, by hearing and chanting the philosophy and the glories of the Lord, like that. So, satam prasangam prasanga. That word prasangam is interesting. There is sangam and there's prasangam. Sangam means association of devotees. But in this verse, satam prasangam means that association where Krishna is being glorified. So when we read Bhagavatam, what is Bhagavatam? Prabhupada said every word is part of the transcendental body of Krishna. It's non-different. So scrutiny, yeah. And another point to your question is that it increases the quality of our chanting because Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan is like Krishna with Radharani. Bhaktisiddhanta makes that statement also. He says that Krishna Katha is the Sarup Siddhi of the Lord, or the energy of the Lord. Just like Radharani is the internal spiritual energy of the Lord, in the same way Krishna Katha is the internal spiritual energy of the Hare Krishna mantra. So it's complete when we hear the glories of the Lord. I mean, Krishna Katha could be Ram Katha, could be Gauranga Katha, could be Nrsimha Katha, the incarnations of the Lord, like that. But also Krishna Katha. It's important. Yes, Janakinath.
Just a clarification. You mentioned material can't touch the spiritual, and referring to Brahma Vimohan Leela. So when Brahma took the cowherd boys, you mentioned that he actually didn't take them. But I thought in that year Krishna expanded himself as the cowherd boys and
he did.
calves.
There was 3 sets.
Oh.
The original ones, which were never touched by Brahma. There was Krishna, the one who expanded himself into and the ones that apparently were taken by Brahma, but that says they were the Maya set.
So what happened?
They were created by the material energy only. So they weren't the real cowherd boys. And then it says that Brahma couldn't touch Krishna's eternal associates. He thought he did. It's just like when you go for sense gratification, you think you're going to be happy. But you get something different. So the same thing is Brahma had that same experience. Thinking, oh, a little sense gratification, all right. We don't get anything. All you get is suffering. Yes.
In that year, Maharaj, what happened to the original set?
So the question is...
In that 1 year period, the original set that Brahma did not touch.
Yeah, they remained there on the banks of the... He couldn't see them, though. But Krishna took the opportunity to expand himself in order to enhance the whole mood of Vrindavan. Because Krishna became the cowherd boys and calves, and each of the mothers of the boys were loving their boys more than they ever loved their boys before. They couldn't understand why they had so much affection for their children. It was beyond their normal affection. It was just natural. And the cows, when they saw their calves, and these were the older calves, usually the cows have affection for the younger calves, but when they saw their older calves, they just bolted from the cowherd men and came running down the hill. And the cowherd men were trying to catch the cows, and they ran to these calves, which were actually Krishna. And then, they started to lick these calves. And Balaram's watching this whole scene, and he's thinking, what's going on here? Is there some mystic yogi performing some program here? He couldn't figure it out. And then finally, after some thought, he thought, oh, it's got to be the work of my brother. No one else can bewilder me. So Krishna actually bewildered Balaram for some time. So you can see how powerful is Krishna. Even Balaram, at least for some time, couldn't understand what was going on. So, yeah. So we have to understand that this material energy is simply a combination of material elements that make different forms. But the forms are simply temporary. So what Brahma got was some material energy, that's all, that looked like the real thing. It's just like when you have, you're in love with somebody, you think, oh, you're so beautiful. But what is it? A bag with blood, pus, mucus, stool, bile, air, bad smells, and so many other nice things in there. And you think this is love, right? That's called Maya. And of course, maybe we're getting a little bit away from the subject here, but just to give Jai Jagannath some pleasure, I'm just speaking like that because he likes these kind of classes. But ultimately, that's the material energy. It's not what you see. It's different. It's a lot different. So Brahma became bewildered because he tried to bewilder the person who bewilders everybody, Krishna. And Brahma's powerful. He can bewilder us. Another question? I thought I saw another hand up somewhere. Yes, Gokulananda.
Maharaj, you mentioned that spiritual knowledge is realization.
Spiritual knowledge?
Is realization. So
transcendental knowledge is realization. Not philosophical knowledge is not.
So can you explain a little bit? Because when we meet among devotees, sometimes we say, can you share your realizations? We say among each other. So what really is a realization that we can, what are the symptoms that we have that we have a realization of different
what are our we get realizations. Otherwise, how can you stay in Krishna consciousness if you're not getting some type of realizations? You get the realization that, I can't do anything. I'm useless. That's a good realization. That's a really high level of realization. When you come to Krishna consciousness, you realize you're useless. Then you stay for a while and you think you're not useless. Then you stay for a little longer, then you realize you actually are useless. That's the cycle, really. In between there, we get a little, Why do we get like that? Because Krishna's mercy is so powerful. And Krishna fills the devotee with his mercy, and that mercy makes you feel like, wow, I'm so great. I can do so many things. But it's his mercy. And then after, after he shows you it's only his mercy, then you come back to reality. So it's only Krishna's mercy. Or the spiritual master who's carrying Krishna's mercy. It's the same thing. So we get realizations. Sometimes we get realizations on so many different things, right? But when you realize, the kind of realizations you want, I'll give you an example. I had a personal experience. I was listening to Prabhupada speak, and Prabhupada was saying the same thing I had heard hundreds of times before. You're not this body. But I heard it that time. I remember I was listening carefully, and Prabhupada was explaining the difference between the body and the soul, and explaining you're not this body. But it wasn't the explanation that gave me the realization. It was Prabhupada saying it that gave me the realization. I didn't need the explanation, but when he said it, I heard it. And that's Krishna conscious. You have to keep hearing the same thing over and over until you hear it. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're not this body. Yeah, I know. I know. But do you really know? Krishna's God. Yes, I know. But do you really know? So that's why the Shastras and the spiritual masters, they simply take the same principles and repeat it over and over again in different ways. So we think we're hearing something different, but it's the same thing repackaged because we get tired of hearing it the same way. Or we get a little callous about what it really means when we keep hearing it the same way. So we just have to repackage the same thing. So when you actually hear and you realize, yeah, I'm Krishna's part and parcel eternally, that's a realization. That's knowledge. That's devotional service. Okay? Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any ladies' questions? No? Okay, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for being here. My question is, like, how do you keep from, like, devotees are, like Krishna says, sometimes he thinks of devotees as himself, and, devotees are magnanimous and worshipable, but at the same time, we can think of ourselves as insignificant, based on wanting to have humility. But what's the actual position of the devotee? Because one devotee can liberate this whole planet and give Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, but Krishna doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need us. He can do it himself. But he works through his devotees. Krishna reciprocates his mercy with how his devotees relate to him and surrender to him. So. But he can do it all alone. He's all powerful. But he likes to give, just like when someone asked Srila Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya preached in India and he made India Krishna consciousness. But why didn't he go around the world and preach Krishna consciousness then? He was God. He could have did it then. Prabhupada said he left it for me. He left it for me to do. So God could have did it, but he wants to glorify his devotees. And that's how he does things. Krishna works through his devotees. What Krishna wants to, Lord Chaitanya wants to make this whole world Krishna consciousness, but he's going to do it through the devotees. He's not going to do it directly. That's how he does things. But it's him doing it through his devotees. The devotee becomes an instrument for Krishna's mercy. That's all. But the devotee knows it's not me. It's the mercy of the Lord. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go to Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.